Welcome, everyone. Thank you all so much for joining us this evening. I'm gonna let everyone kind of trickle in before I really get started here. Okay. All right. Welcome, guys. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us this evening. My name is Alexis Anderson. I'm the Scholarships Administrator here at the National Society of High School Scholars. I do all things scholarship from start to finish, from the application process to the review process to the disbursement process. So if after this webinar you guys have any questions, my email will be on the screen at the end, so feel free to shoot me an email. Just a little overview of the kind of stuff we're going to touch on today. So first, just some general scholarship information that NSHSS provides. We have a plethora of scholarships over the course of the year. And then just an insight into some stuff that we have currently available, and some stuff that's to come later on in the year. And then we have our lovely scholarship panelists here with us this evening. These are winners of NSHSS scholarships. So they've been through our process start to finish. A couple of them are college students, got a high school student in there. So they have some pretty unique perspectives on the whole thing, start to finish. So they'll have some good advice for us. And then we'll have a chance to ask them some questions towards the end. Alrighty, so to get things started, NSHSS and its partners offer $2.5 million worth of scholarships every year. And that's for high school and college students. Our scholarships range on all types of topics. We have arts-related scholarships, we have student-athlete scholarships, we have STEM scholarships, we have community service scholarships, pretty much any discipline or anything that you may be interested in. Chances are we have a program for that, and we have new ones that open all the time. So yeah, just a little bit about us. Right now, here, I'll go to what we have going on right now. Right now, these are just kind of a snapshot into the stuff that is happening currently. This isn't everything we have open, but this just kind of gives you an overview of the kind of scholarships that we have. So we have our STEAM scholarship. That one's open to high school seniors who are members, 10 $1,000 awards. We have our Earth Day scholarship. That's kind of a more like, what are you doing in your community to promote environmental consciousness, that kind of thing. We have our First Generation scholarship. We have our Future Female Leader scholarship. So this just kind of gives you an overview of like the broad range of topics that our scholarships can cover. Right now, we have about 10 open on our website. These open periodically throughout the course of the year in batches. So the next big batch that's going to open up is right before the summer when everyone has more time to fill out applications. So check back on the website in like May, and there'll be a lot more stuff on there. But just some general information about our scholarships and the kinds of things that we require. So across all of our scholarships, we're going to ask you for a letter of recommendation. This can be from a teacher, from a coach, from a mentor, from your employer. Maybe you have a part-time job, a club advisor, anybody that can speak on behalf of your academic or personal reference that isn't related to you. Those can all be recommenders. We require one, you can submit up to two. All of our applications are going to ask you for a 500, 800 word essay. That's pretty standard across any scholarship application. Your academic resume, a color headshot, and a transcript. Everything on this list except for the essay can be transferable between different applications. So you only have to submit it one time and it'll copy onto every other scholarship that you apply for through us, with the exception of the essays. Those are very specific to each program, and we'll get into that. Eligibility wise, like I mentioned, we have scholarships for high school and college students of all grade levels. So it's never too early or too late to start applying. We have something available for everybody. NSGSS has member-only scholarships, and then we have public scholarships, meaning that some of our scholarships are only open to our members. So the pool is a lot smaller. So those scholarships you'll have a greater chance, just probability-wise, there'll be less applicants. And then the public scholarships are open to anybody and everybody if they meet the requirements. So those are going to have a lot more applications. Just something to keep in mind as you're looking through them. If the eligibility says members, that pool is probably going to be a little bit smaller. So keep that in mind when you're looking at stuff. Some quick facts about our scholarships. Every student is eligible for one scholarship per calendar year. We don't do it based on the academic calendar. We do it on a yearly basis. Like I mentioned, our scholarships are opening and closing on a rolling basis throughout the year. So we usually have like big chunks that they open. So right now we have our spring scholarships, and then we'll have our summer ones that open up and those close in the fall, and then we'll have a batch that are open up until the end of the year. So if you don't see anything on our website right now that you're particularly interested in, keep checking back because that's going to change throughout the course of the year. Our decisions are released 6 to 8 weeks after the close date. So not 6 to 8 weeks after you submitted an application, but when that application actually closes, that's when you can expect to hear back from us. That gives us time to make sure that we're giving every scholarship the proper review and everyone gets the time and attention that they deserve on their applications. So if you're like, I submitted the scholarship 3 months ago, I haven't heard back, it's probably because it hasn't closed quite yet, or that close date is still in that window. So if you have a question about it, you can also just email us of when you're expecting to hear back from that. So enough from me, we can get into our panelists. Like I mentioned, all of the panelists on our team today are NSHSS scholarship winners. They've been through this process. I'm sure many of them, this isn't the first scholarship they've applied to. I think most scholarship winners have applied to a plethora of scholarships across all platforms. That's pretty much the strategy's quantity typically. So we can get into it. So first we've got Jenna Chen. Jenna was the winner of our Greg Goff Leadership Scholarship in 2024. She currently attends the Woodland Secondary School and is looking to pursue pre-med and post-secondary education. She serves as the co-president of the prefects at her school, where she's helped raise over $20,000 for charities such as Feed Ontario and Covenant House. Outside of school, Jenna is the founder of Canvas for a Cause, a charity that sells paintings and commissioned artwork to raise funds for local animal shelters. Additionally, as the volunteer lead at William Osler Health System, she manages a team of volunteers and to ensure that all patients have the best experience possible. In her spare time, Jenna enjoys painting, listening to true crime podcasts, and snowboarding. Jenna, correct me if I'm wrong, but she is a Canadian resident. So it's one other thing that I forgot to mention is that our scholarships are available to everybody internationally. You can apply from anywhere in the world. We have scholarship winners on, I think, 4 continents, hundreds of different countries. So don't let that be a barrier to applying. We can also award scholarships to international organizations. If you're a US citizen and you want to go away for school, we can also provide scholarship funds for international organizations. So just keep that in mind as well. All right, then we've got Logan Abbey. Logan was the winner of our Communicore See What's Up, See What's More Scholarship 2023. Logan is a driven college freshman who values growth and excellence. Throughout his high school career, he advocated for various campus changes, took on rigorous coursework while fulfilling household responsibilities, and accumulated over 300 hours of community service. He dedicated his time to volunteering with nonprofit organizations, leading on-campus extracurricular activities, and constantly seeking opportunities for personal growth. Logan enjoys playing the piano, going for early morning runs, and meeting new people. He plans to pursue a career in law and hopes to bring meaningful change to various legislatures in the future. Thank you so much for joining us, Logan. And last but not least, we have Michael. Michael was the recipient of our NSHS Hometown Hero Scholarship 2024. Michael is a dedicated youth advocate, passionate about youth representation and voice. He has served as a UNICEF USA National Youth Representative for Texas and worked on Houston's UNICEF Child Friendly Cities Initiative, advancing children's rights. As a member of the Emergency Preparedness Committee, he designed a curriculum and created educational resources to help K-8 children in underserved areas better understand disaster preparedness. Michael has also served on the Education Equity Committee, chaired the Houston Mayor's Youth Council, and advised on issues affecting youth throughout the Houston Youth Police Advisory Council. As an IB diploma recipient, Michael's freshman at Northwestern University, where he majors in political science and plans to pursue a career in law. So thank you to all of our recipients joining us this evening. So to get things started, I have a few questions to kick things off, and then please feel free to drop some stuff in the chat. Any questions that you may have, we will get to those a little bit towards the end. So just to get things started, the number one question that I always get across the board is, how do you make your application stand out? We receive hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of applications for any given program. So what's one thing that you all can do to help stand out from the crowd? Jenna, do you want to get started on that one?
Yeah, for sure. So I think the main thing, and something I've heard from a lot of different people, is to make your application very personable and unique to yourself. So what I mean by that is just having a list of all your extracurriculars and your accomplishments isn't enough, but you want to be able to connect that to yourself and really dive into your motivations about why you did that. So for me, I kind of constructed a narrative about my motivations, and then I use that to lead into all of my extracurriculars. So there's kind of an overarching theme, and that way, when the reader or the applicant reviewer read my application, they were able to kind of connect and understand what kind of person I am rather than just kind of having all of my accomplishments and extracurriculars listed out. So I think that really helps make your application stand out because among all of the applications, there's bound to have people to have repeat extracurriculars as you. So having them tied to yourself, that makes it very unique and helps it stand out a little bit.
I 100% agree. That's actually a really common mistake that we see all the time on these applications as students kind of list their accomplishments in their essay in almost like a resume kind of format. I really don't recommend that because the essay is one of the only places in your application that you're able to show your personality. We can see all those other components in other areas of your application. So I totally agree that giving your personality, that's usually the best way to at least have a compelling application. That's a really good first step. Michael, do you want to chime in on that?
Yeah, definitely. Good evening, everybody. It is a pleasure to be able to speak to you all. And I think Jenna put that perfectly about, the core value of making your application stand out. And just to piggyback off that and resonate it further, tell a very compelling personal story that conveys who you are. um, you know, when the panels look at these applications, the thousands of them that they receive, they know everybody's very great. And, these are very bright young minds that are doing amazing things to give back to their society. But make it personal, what defines who you are? How does what you do define what you are? And I think a great way to focus on that is highlighting your values, your passions, and also your motivations. What has brought you to do what you do, and also how what you've done has motivated you to maybe go into a different sector or some story that has motivated you to go build a passion to go do a certain thing. For example, for myself, I from a young age I had a growing passion for civic engagement and also youth rights, and that passion grew when I worked with UNICEF's CFCI and the Emergency Preparedness Council, and I was able to take that to the national level, working with FEMA to deliver emergency preparedness material to youth. Again, main thing, build a very good personal story for yourself. I think also, don't completely hide them away, but focus on your unique accomplishments, things that would set you apart from other applicants. For example, certain leadership roles that you have had and how that has defined who you are in your story, as well as a very important thing to do is addressing challenges. Not everything's perfect, and challenges are a natural facet of life. And I think it's very important to address those challenges and how that has built who you are and also has made you a stronger, better person and has helped you with your mission. And also mention any certain community service experiences that you're passionate about, or something that is, as I said earlier, has influenced what you want to do in your future career and goals. Then also make sure to highlight a positive impact that you have had through your work in some way, and really show what the impact and the effect of your mission has had on other people. And then also, I think a very important thing that you cannot forget is, and this comes into other facets of applying and how to do things correctly, is give yourself plenty of time to do your application and make sure to not have any errors, such as grammatical errors or misspellings or bad flow or structure in your essay or your writing, because those things are noticed. So make sure to proofread your material. That can even until giving it to a friend or family member to have a look over, because there's some things that your eye might miss. And then also a very important thing to make your application stand out is with your letters of recommendation. When you ask someone to write a letter of recommendation on your behalf, make sure it's someone that knows you very well, whether, as Alexis mentioned earlier, someone who could be a mentor, a teacher, or an employer, someone who knows who you are as a person and your work ethic and what you do.
Thank you so much, Michael. Yeah, you touched on a lot of really important things there. To piggyback off of that, I would agree that it is important to mention the things that you're doing. Um, in like your clubs, your extracurriculars, all of that stuff in your essay, because most things will probably ask that. I think the key is to strike a balance between tying in like your personal story and why you're doing the things that you do, give some context to your accomplishments and to your involvement. The purpose of a scholarship essay, really your application as a whole, you should be kind of building a narrative about who you are as a person and all of the little components of your application, your recommendation, your resume, your essay especially should all kind of like tie in to paint a picture of who you are as a human, as well as who you are as a student and as a member of your community. So that was really great. Thank you, Michael. Logan, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, so like Michael and Jenna really touched on a lot of stuff there, but I guess to kind of add on to some of the stuff they were talking about, I really think that the emphasis that a lot of people should focus on is like quality versus quantity. Some people think like, oh, if I put a bunch of stuff, then it will make me seem more like competitive. But I really feel like if you have a set list of, extracurriculars that you really dedicated your time to and just were passionate about, it speaks more levels than just listing a bunch of things that you did, and like kind of adding on to the telling a story. I know a lot of times it can feel like, for some people, it feels like you have to formulate a certain story or like your story is not, I guess, for lack of a better word, like tragic enough or some type of, you feel like you have to fit a certain mold or else your story doesn't hold as much weight as somebody else. But I can confidently say, and I've reviewed scholarship applications myself, like any story where you're showing who you are and why you believe a certain way or an experience that really has impacted you is worth telling. You shouldn't compare your story or feel like you need to, say a certain thing just to, impress whoever's reading your application because like what really should stick with you guys is that authenticity is really important here. Yes.
I totally agree with you, Logan. I think authenticity comes through in an application more than you would think it does. And it kind of ties back to the whole building a narrative that I was talking about. If, you're talking about something in your essay and then there's really nothing else that kind of backs that up, it is missing that piece of authenticity. So I think that's also extremely true that your story and somebody else's are going to be completely different. Your experiences are different, your motivations are different. And that's what makes an interesting application is explaining all of that and kind of diving into like what makes you who you are and why this scholarship would benefit you, this field. And it all ties back into being a little bit more specific about which scholarship you're applying for and what pieces make sense for that. Like for example, if you're applying for a STEAM scholarship and nowhere anywhere in your essay or in your application have you ever shown any kind of desire to work in the STEAM field, that doesn't come across as super authentic. So we'll get into that a little bit later, but I think it's also important to keep in mind the context of the essay and the question at hand and applying your experiences and your extracurriculars accordingly. So yeah, something to keep in mind. We'll keep moving along here. Um, can you guys describe to me how you chose which scholarships to apply for? Kind of tying back to what I was talking about. Logan, do you want to start this time?
Yes. So for me, it was a lot more based on like what I felt spoke to my own experience throughout, high school and even, middle school. And so for me, it was really, for example, one of the scholarships that I applied to was the CommuniCorp See What's More scholarship. And it was really just about, making an impact throughout your community and, trying to help those who are less fortunate or et cetera, et cetera. And so for me, it was picking an application or picking a scholarship that I feel like I could really tell my story through. And you were kind of talking about it a little bit earlier, but if you just pick a random scholarship, just just to apply, um, and I mean maybe you can fake it till you make it, but I feel like it really will be more impactful for you and just even make you more of a competitive applicant if you pick something that you can really tell your story through. Like if you're passionate about community service or STEM or, whatever it is, like it really speaks more volumes to pick something that really is your niche.
I totally agree with that. And if you're one of those people that is struggling to find scholarships or you're not sure where to start, there is a scholarship for every single niche activity, personality trait. There's scholarships out there for tall people. There's scholarships for left-handed people. Like you're gonna find something that fits who you are. So I encourage you all to kind of take a step back and look at all of the facets of your personality, where you come from, if you're a first generation student, or maybe, like I said, you're super tall. There's always going to be something for somebody. And if you pick a scholarship that ties back to you as a person, your application is always going to be stronger. So something to keep in mind. Michael or Jenna, do you guys want to hop on?
Yeah, sure. I can go ahead if you want to just continue in the order. I completely agree with what Logan said and what Alexis said as well. There's plenty of opportunities out there. You just have to look for them and find what best suits yourself. So me personally, I just researched and looked for scholarships that aligned with my personal and academic interests as well as my extracurricular activities. And for example, when I applied to the NSHSS scholarship, I applied to the Hometown Hero Scholarship, which mainly focused on civic engagement and community service. So that was right up my alley with what I had been doing throughout middle school and high school. And then also just make sure to carefully review the different criteria for the scholarships you apply for to make sure that you qualify for it, whether that's certain facets that they're looking for, age, grade level, graduation year, or certain different criteria that you could fit in. And also just make sure to assess and be honest with yourself if you think that scholarship is a realistic fit for you. There's plenty of different scholarships out there, and you want to also make sure that you use your time wisely to be able to apply for ones that you think would be worthwhile. So I think that's definitely a good rule of thumb to go by. I'll pass to you, Jenna.
Yeah, I think Logan and Michael mostly covered majority of things that I agree with. And just one more thing, I think it's important to strategize which scholarships you're going to apply for, because especially if you're in your senior year in grade 12, you have a lot of other responsibilities, you have things to balance, and so you can't just spend all your time on scholarships because you have a lot of other commitments as well. So what I did is, again, I picked scholarships that I resonated with and that I thought my skill set could cater to. And then I don't think that just like applying to every single scholarship you see, that's not necessarily a very good strategy. Again, I think you should prioritize quality over quantity. So really focus on a few scholarships that you again resonate with and you believe that you are a good candidate for, and then put your time into refining those scholarships rather than spreading yourself very thin and applying for a bunch of scholarships.
I think that's very good advice. It's also, as a reviewer, I'm sure Logan, you've seen some of this too. It's pretty evident when an application was kind of thrown together and there wasn't a whole lot of thought behind it. So you want to avoid that as much as possible. Like you said, quality over quantity. I mean, of course, like so, to a certain degree, scholarships are a numbers game, and if you apply to as many as you can, but that's not always going to reap the same rewards, and it might cause you a lot more stress trying to spread yourself that thin rather than just looking for the opportunities that make the most sense for you. So I think that's really good advice. We have a question in the chat that actually you're going to touch on, so I'll go ahead and touch on that. When did you start applying for scholarships? Is it too early, too soon? Like, what's your advice on how to get started with that? Jenna, do you want to start?
Yeah, sure. So I started looking at scholarships in the summer prior to my senior year. And I think that generally was a good time for me because during the summer I wasn't as busy as the start of grade 12, and I had a lot of time to look at the different scholarships throughout the year. And also a lot of the major scholarships, the ones that have a lot of value, at least in Canada, they are available at the very start of the year, so September to December. And you want to be able to have all of those in line, the references in check, and as well as all the dates, you want to have those all laid out. So I would say in the summer, it's a good time to start researching. If not, definitely at the start of the school year, just before everything starts to pick up and you start having scholarships slip through the cracks. So that's a time I started researching about scholarships. And then throughout the year, there are a lot of scholarships just littered throughout. So even if you don't necessarily get to the ones at the start of the year, you have a lot of opportunities still to apply to scholarships later on throughout your year.
That's very good advice. Logan, do you want to pop in?
Yes, so I completely agree with that. I feel like, and I'm sure some of you in here have probably noticed as well, but like a lot of scholarships do have more early deadlines. The major ones do have like very quick deadlines. So I would say the summer of your senior year, you should definitely start looking. And um, for me, I kind of overdid it, I guess you could say a little bit because I looked for a new one every single day, but I had a lot more time on my hands. So that situation will obviously be different for, depending on your workload. But I would just say like if you really want to, broaden your chances of getting a scholarship, then you should set a schedule for yourself or like set a goal for yourself. Like once a week, I want to find a new scholarship, or once a month, I want to apply to a new scholarship, or whatever, works for you, just so that, you have more, I guess you could say more chances to both make your application stand out and also give yourself enough time to, make it really impactful. So yeah.
Michael, you want to add anything?
Yeah, just to reiterate what's been said, I think Jenna and Logan said things perfectly. But just to say it again, I think just starting as early as you can is the best thing you can do. Me personally, I started looking and researching for scholarships in my junior year, but before, sorry, the summer before my junior year, since I did a internship during that summer, as well as I was just that was my free time before senior year in the rush of college apps and everything, that I had the opportunity to be able to look for things and also just broaden my scope of the different opportunities I had. So I recommend, just start as early as you can. That will give you plenty of time to look for what you want to apply for and also give you plenty of time to do it.
Think that's great advice. I would say it's never too early to start looking for scholarships. I know we offer scholarships for students starting their freshman year, and we actually just changed our policy this year. We still offer scholarships for all grade levels, but now if you win a scholarship through us, either your freshman, sophomore, junior year of high school, we will pay the scholarship directly to you within that same calendar year. And then if you're a senior or in college, we'll send that scholarship money straight to your university. So it's never too late to start accumulating, or never too early to start accumulating scholarships. I would say the sooner that you start, the better, even just for the sake of practice. It's one of those things that as you start applying to them, for me, when I was in high school, I wasn't applying to scholarships until, right before I went to school, which was, I wish if I could go back in time and change that, I would. But just for the sake of like saving yourself the panic and you understand the process, you might not necessarily be as successful as a freshman as you might be as a senior, just because you don't have as much experience under your belt and your skills aren't quite there. But it's never too early to start practicing. And if you get declined, you can ask questions. Some places will give you feedback if you ask for it. So I would say the sooner the better. And don't ignore those smaller scholarships too. If you want to start earlier with, the $250 scholarships, those kinds of things accumulate. And the longer that you give yourself to start getting those kinds of scholarships or applying for them, and like they add up over time. So the sooner the better. I would say a lot of scholarships, like you guys mentioned, are primarily for high school seniors, high school juniors. So at least your junior year, I would say during your junior year is a really good time to at least start getting familiar with the process, maybe talking to your school counselor about letters of recommendation or, how to get started on all of that. But it's never too soon to start. I've never heard anyone say, I wish I started later. So just keep that in mind when you're looking at stuff. So one more thing for you guys. How did you stay organized and prioritize your scholarship applications with your academic responsibilities, with your extracurriculars? You all have a lot of things going on, so how do you stay on top of it? How do you keep track? Michael, do you want to start?
Yeah, definitely. And also, I wanted to mention one last point from our last question. One really great resource that I think a lot of people forget about is their college counselor at their high school. And usually those counselors are shooting at a lot of different opportunities. So definitely look out for those. And then regarding, of course, our next question on staying organized, I think the most important thing that I cannot stress enough is time management. If you haven't developed those skills now, I recommend starting as soon as you can because it will help you so much later on throughout high school and then into college and every other facet of your life. I just definitely recommend creating a calendar, helping yourself stay organized. As a student, you have already 4 to 8 classes to worry about, depending on what type of school system you're in. All that work to deal with, extracurriculars, different meetings, sports, family, friends, everything to take care of. So definitely use a calendar. I use Google Calendar and it merges to my iPhone. It's really convenient to put all my activities and dates and events in, and that helps me stay organized. And then also a very big thing that will help you be less stressed out when you're applying is give your recommenders a lot of time to do your letters of rec. I when I was applying for scholarships in junior and senior year, and then even for college in senior year. I gave a few of my teachers and mentors, months notice to do my letters of rec, and sometimes they can't do it in that time. So have a lot of options and also give them plenty of time. The last thing you want to do is have your recommender rush your letter of recommendation. It's not a good look for either of y'all because you want those to be very strong to be able to endorse yourself. And then once again, start as early as you can, give yourself as much time as you can. As Alexis said, you never ever hear anybody say, I wish I started later. And then also let others read your essays, as I've said before, let them proofread and give them time to provide you feedback. This could be having a friend or family member read for flow and small grammatical errors, or even giving it to a writing advisor or a teacher at your school and giving them plenty of time to give you feedback on where they can make your work that you can make your work a lot stronger.
I think that's great advice. I've heard a lot of students say things like Google Calendar. Some people have Excel sheets. Some people just do pen and paper on a planner like that. Jenna, do you have a specific way that you keep organized?
So in terms of scholarships, I have a Google Sheet that I use. So I have all my scholarships, the links to their applications, and then the due date. And then I use color to show which ones are open, which ones are closed, which ones are already completed. And then I also keep track of my references because generally you want to apply to a couple of different scholarships, and most of them require recommendations. And I just want to make sure that I'm not overloading one person in particular with a bunch of my letters of references, and I'm kind of dispersing my recommenders. So besides that, again, I think centralizing all of your due dates is also really helpful. So like Michael mentioned, the Google Calendar, I have a Google Calendar of all my due dates, and because it's all in one place, it makes it very easy to visualize it and see what needs to be done for that day or for that week. And a lot of people, myself included, are often very motivated by deadlines. So really they only start feeling the pressure of getting things done when the deadline is approaching. But when you have a lot of things going on, say you have a bunch of assignments due, a bunch of exams due, and you have your scholarship due, you want to be able to keep track of what you want to do every single day so you're not cramming them last minute. So it's much better to do a little extra work every single day rather than leave it all to the last second and not being able to finish it. So again, that just comes to developing good study habits, finding what works for you, and having the discipline to work a little bit harder every single day rather than just leaving it all to the last minute. And that has really helped me to keep all of my deadlines in order.
I think that's a great strategy, and that'll carry over to other parts of your life as well. Like you can do that for scholarship applications, but even as you get into your career, when you're in college and you have all these different assignments and different due dates and classes and everything, those are just practices that you can carry with you throughout the course of your academic and your career. So that's really great advice. Logan, do you have any particular strategies that you stay organized with?
Yes, and I guess this might be geared a little bit towards the underclassmen, but for me, I found that what really helped me to stay organized when it came to scholarships was planning out my schedule like throughout the 4 years of high school. And so for me, my school is like I guess like it was very like concurrent enrollment oriented. So like you could take college classes whenever you wanted throughout the year. So I took a lot of classes during the summer. And so I found that that helped me to get like the really hard courses out of the way for me. And then my senior year, I just, or even like the second half of my junior year, it was more courses that I felt I could manage, like I wouldn't have to put as much time into. And so one thing that really helped me was like plan out your schedule. And I think even if you are already at the point where you kind of don't really have that leeway, I think a lot of people that I've talked to, and even myself, like even if you're deciding, should I take this course that I might not even need and da 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 da, um, sometimes it's good to not take it, and that won't harm you in any way. It's just thinking about, what's best for you, what's best for making sure that you can utilize your time to the best of, your ability. And I think Jenna said something about exactly what it was, but I just remember she talked a little bit about like Google Calendar and stuff like that. And I feel like that really helped me as well because I could, have everything, see everything, and get everything done on time. So yeah.
Yeah, that's really great advice. And like you said, as it applies to when you get into your undergrad, scholarship applications are kind of similar to college in the sense that no one's coming behind you to make sure that it gets done. Your grade doesn't get affected. You're the only person that's impacted by that. So it takes a lot of accountability. And that's something that high school students develop over time, especially as you get into your college career. Just the autonomy that you have over your time and the way that you distribute things. So I think it's really good practice to get started with that early. And as it pertains to scholarships, some advice that I've heard from other scholarship winners is they like to break their components of an application over multiple days, and they try not to work on two applications at the same time. Like maybe today I'm going to draft my essay and tomorrow I'm going to work on my resume, and then the next day when I have fresh eyes I'm going to read my essay again. Just kind of break things up into smaller bite-sized pieces, and sprinkle that into your schedule when you have the time, because high school students today, I mean, their schedules are insane. There's school and there's extracurriculars and then there's homework for all these AP classes. And I think it can be really daunting to try to fit in applying for stuff at the same time. So I think if you can just break things up into little pieces and sprinkle them in, when you have 20 minutes, you can proofread your essay. When you have 10 minutes, you can send an email to your recommender or something like that. Like you just break the things up into little tasks that don't seem as overwhelming and give yourself as much time as possible to get all those little things accomplished. I think that'll really add up. A big question that we get a lot is about letters of recommendation, and we've touched on it a little bit. As a scholarship reviewer, I can tell you that a letter of recommendation can really be the thing that puts an application over the edge, to being really stellar and standing out. So do you guys have any advice on how to go about getting a really good quality letter of recommendation, how to ask for one, how to get your recommender prepared, Like, do you have a meeting with them? Do you just ask your football coach? Like, what's your strategy? Logan, do you want to start with that one?
Yes, so for me, I found, well, first of all, a very important thing is to pick someone who actually can speak levels about your character and like what you're passionate about, et cetera, et cetera. Like it shouldn't just be a teacher who you got a really good grade in their class, I think. I think it really, what makes a good recommendation is when the recommender can speak levels to the things that you've done and expand on some of the stuff that you probably talked about in your application. And so for me, I found that what really worked for me when deciding like who I wanted to be my recommender was like the relationship I feel like I had with them. Like for example, one of my recommenders was my AP biology teacher, and not only I picked her because not only like did I feel like I got a really good grade in her class, but I feel like she could speak levels to who I was. Like I remember I worked with her on, community service initiatives. Like I would go in her class and eat lunch and, like we had like a personal relationship and I was comfortable enough to even approach her to ask. And um, I think whether that be by email or, you walk up to, well, here, like you can ask them, but I feel like it's also important to give them a rundown of everything like that you've done as well, because, sometimes they can't do it by memory. And so, obviously asking them early and also providing them with the necessary information so that they can, give you a good recommendation. So, yeah.
Jenna, do you want to chime in?
Yeah, so I think Logan touched on a lot of really great points. I feel like if you guys are in the younger grades, like grade 9, grade 10, it's definitely really beneficial to start building a relationship with someone um, you feel that could be a good letter of reference. And I don't just mean like building a connection with someone just for the sake of that reference, but I mean looking for people who know you well. So, for example, one of my references I used, she was my club sponsor for a club that I was the president of, the co-president of. And she could really speak to my leadership skills and things I've done for that club. And so that for me was a really great choice because she knew about what I was doing. And one other thing I will say that's super important is to make sure that your recommender that they know what the scholarship is looking for. And that could mean going on your own and researching about what qualities the scholarship is looking for, and then providing those qualities for your recommender so they're not just left in the dark. And then also what I did, what that I found really helpful was including a document or a PDF of things that I thought were important to highlight in regards to the specific reference for a scholarship. And so these two things really helped craft a letter recommendation that touched on the qualities that were important and the qualities that I thought that I had that made me a good candidate for that scholarship.
Michael, anything to add?
Yeah, definitely great things have been said, and I feel like Logan and Jenna already stole the words from my mouth. But just to touch on a few points again, yeah, as Jenna said, definitely start building relationships with people very early on. And as Logan said, don't just ask some random teacher just because you got a good grade in their class. For myself personally, one of my recommenders was one of my teachers that I had for in class for 2 years straight for the same course, who saw my work ethic and my leadership skills and my commitment to what I wanted to do, and also my success in the topics when faced with challenges. And on top of that, also saw me outside of the classroom. That teacher was also a sponsor, like similarly to Jenna's situation. I was a sponsor of one of the club that I was a part of. So definitely look for people who know you very well. That's not just personally, but also your work ethic. They can touch on everything about who you are. They know you almost like, a friend that they've known since childhood. So definitely work on building those relationships very early on, and make sure to choose writers who know you very well. And then also, as Logan and Jenna said earlier, definitely come prepared. I think personally, in the way I addressed reaching out to all of my recommenders was in person. I'm not a very big fan of doing things online and over email. That goes with text message as well. I like to call people or talk to them in person. So definitely I would recommend going to talk to them in person, whether that's in office hours, whenever you can, even reaching out to them to find a time to meet with them. And come prepared. I would recommend having a little simple folder with your resume and information about you that they can help that can guide them in writing about who you are and endorsing you. And then also, I'm not sure if Logan touched on it or Jenna, but giving information on what the scholarship is, because I had a lot of recommenders who I reached out to who told me, write me an email with more details on what this is, because you're kind of just you don't want to just give them something and say, hey, write a recommendation for me. Give them some guidelines on what the application is you're applying for.
I think that's great advice. And I've heard from a lot of students and recommenders that students that come to the recommender with some kind of a personal statement, even if it's just like, these are all the ways that I've been involved that you might not know about. Here's what the scholarship is asking. This is why I think it would be beneficial. Even just like a couple of paragraphs that give some context to the question that you're asking is going to add a lot of depth to your letter of recommendation. Typically the amount of information that you give them is the amount of information that is going to be reflected on that application. So the more of a relationship that you have, they can speak on your personality and, on your work ethic, but also give context to what you're asking. I think that's crucial, and it will level up your recommendation. While we're on the topic of recommendations, there's a couple of questions in the chat. If you get a letter of recommendation from a teacher for a scholarship essay, can you also use it for college applications? My answer to that is it depends. Our letters of recommendation, we require teachers or educators, whoever, to submit them through an anonymous portal. So you don't actually see your letter of recommendation. That just keeps the confidentiality of it. It like verifies the letter of recommendation. And I think that's pretty standard practice for most letters of recommendation. And it also depends on what you're applying for. If we get a letter of recommendation that was clearly written for another purpose and just recycled, it doesn't hold as much weight. So with some tweaking, I think if you have that conversation with your recommender, these are all of the things I'm applying for, this is what I'm looking for, then you could. But I don't think just having it on deck ready to recycle is the best strategy. It also might not always be possible because they have to be anonymous. So I think the best strategy for that is to have a conversation with your recommender, and just talk about all the things that you're interested in, and then you guys can figure out how to tailor your recommendations to each individual thing. Another just rapid fire one, do all scholarship applications require or have a space to submit recommendations? Not all of them, but a lot of them. It's pretty standard practice for college admission, scholarship applications, any kind of like extra program, like pre-college programs, those a lot of the time require letters of recommendation. So, and even when you get out of high school and you're into college and you're looking to go to grad school, or maybe you want to get a job and you need a letter of recommendation, that's going to be a common reoccurrence in your life as you go through your professional career. So I think get comfortable with how to get a really good one and get as much practice as you can. It's only going to help you in the long run. I'll go ahead and go through a couple of these questions in the chat since we're getting close to time here. Can you explain what you mean students are eligible for one scholarship per calendar year? So you can apply to as many scholarships as you want, but you're only eligible to win one per year. So if you've already won one in 2025, I wouldn't recommend continuing to apply for more because you won't be eligible for them again until the next year. So you can apply for as many as you'd like, but you're only eligible to win one per year. Are financials taken into consideration? Our scholarships are all merit-based with the exception of like one or two occasionally, but typically they're merit-based. So we don't ask you for any kind of financial information. Typically the ones that are financial-based or need-based come from the schools themselves or some other kind of organization that supports the schools. But for NSHS scholarships, we do not ask you for any kind of financial documentation. So as we are kind of wrapping things up, if you could do it all over again, what's one mistake that you made that you would advise others not to make? Or what's one piece of wisdom that you would pass on to a high school student who's starting this for the first time? They don't know where to start, or maybe they've been trying and they haven't had much success. What's like the one thing that you wish you knew before? Michael, do you want to start?
Sure, definitely. Excuse me. Sure, definitely. And I will touch on both of those questions. I'll first start off with the bad. One mistake I did that I wish if I could start all over again that I wouldn't do is, my time management. I'm a suspect of what I tell other people not to not do in the future. So make sure to manage your time very well. I had a few instances where I started late on some of my applications as well as my letters of recommendation, and that did have an effect on possibly my outcome on some of those applications. So definitely, I cannot stress enough. Start as early as you can, and I understand I'm similar to what Jenna said earlier. I kind of, we all, I feel are somewhat that way where we work under better under pressure. So kind of having that deadline approach helps us get things done and work better. But just get into the practice of starting earlier so you're less stressed and you're just better quality of work that you produce. And then my wisdom to someone who's getting into this whole process is just, touching back onto where we started this panel. Just be sincere and genuine about, who you are, your passions, your personality, and let that shine through in your essays. Build your story and just tell the people in the panel that is you're applying for, who you are and be genuine, just your true self. Don't try to be someone you aren't. And, just that's it. Yeah.
Jenna, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, so I think one thing that I wish I would have known at the start is that just because you don't get a scholarship that you really were gunning for, it's not really the end of the world. Not every single scholarship is going to be the best fit for you and vice versa. And there are a lot of great opportunities um, that still exist besides that one thing that you were really aiming for. So it's not the end of the world if you don't get a scholarship that you really wanted. Don't let that deter you from continuing to apply to other scholarships. And yeah, just keep going. And there are a lot of other great opportunities besides that one scholarship. And in terms of advice, I would say you're not really. So when I was applying to scholarships, I kind of did the process on my own. But in reality, you have a lot of great support around you that you can access. For example, this could be older students that you are friends with, or teachers, or guidance counselors. And there is a lot of support and guidance if you look for it. And this can be really helpful and to know that you're not alone in this process. And it can be really hard, but there is always help available. And even like webinars like this, they're really helpful to kind of familiarize yourself with the process of applying to scholarships.
Logan, anything to add?
Yeah, so bouncing off of like what Jenna said, I think one mistake that I made was I feel like there was moments where if I didn't get a certain scholarship, I would kind of dwell on it a little. But I think looking back, I'm glad that I was able to, move past it because at the end of the day, like these scholarships are not a reflection of you as a person, whether you get them or not. Like they truly aren't going to tell who you really are. And so I would say like even if you for example, like me, I remember there was a certain scholarship that I got where I got all the way to the final stage and then I didn't get it. And obviously, like that sometimes can be like discouraging. It can feel like, oh, like, why am I even doing this? But, I continued and I feel like where I'm at today, I'm happy that I continued and I didn't allow that to be something that stopped me from moving on. And so I guess moving on to like advice, I would say do your research when it comes to a lot of these scholarships. And research could just mean like if it's a bigger scholarship, you could talk to like a lot of the students who win these scholarships are willing to talk to people. So you can reach out to them, whether that be on LinkedIn or if there's like webinar like this, you can attend it and ask questions and, just really make sure you know how to make your application strong. But also those smaller scholarships that are just as important. Um, Look for local scholarships. You know, any anything you can, you know, anything you can find. And that's not to say to apply to every single thing, obviously things that cater to your experience, but just don't only apply to a huge scholarship and ignore the local scholarships because a lot of these, local scholarships are obviously less competitive and they also, provide a lot of good opportunities for you. So, yes. So,
Thank you so much. We have a lot of questions in the chat that are kind of along the same vein, so I'll kind of answer it overall. Do you guys have any other sources that you've looked for scholarships on? Any like specific websites or resources that you've used? Like, where are you finding these other opportunities? Jenna, do you want to start with that one?
Yeah, so since I'm from Canada, I don't know if this applies to everyone here, but there are a lot of websites that have all the scholarships, and you can make a profile and then you can enter what schools you apply to, what your interests are, and what you want to focus on. And then that has a filter, and then that updates all your scholarships. So some of these scholarship websites include Scholarship Canada, and I'm sure if you look online, there are a lot of different websites that are made specifically for helping students to find scholarships. So online resources, that's a big thing that I used. And also guidance counselors, they're really well versed in the world of scholarships and they have a plethora of scholarships available. So again, reaching out to them, that also was helpful as well.
Michael, any other sources that you're looking for these scholarships on?
Yeah, definitely just touch similar to what Jenna said. Searching online is a great thing to do. That's one of the main ways I found a lot of the scholarships I applied for. Just, do a simple Google search. You have the whole internet at your disposal and just find different things. Usually once you find one, it's kind of a domino effect and you start finding others. Definitely another important one that I think you should utilize is talking to upperclassmen. Whether that could be older siblings or friends at your school that are in a higher grade than you. Talk to them and use them as a resource to find out what are the better things to do, strategies, different scholarships to apply for, etc. And then also a very important one, I think, is to, of course, as I mentioned earlier, go to your college guidance counselor. They usually send out on email chains different scholarships throughout the year, and even just go talk to them. Tell them what you're looking for, what you do outside of school, and they'll help you.
Again, anything else to add?
yes, so like basically everything that Jenna and Michael already said, but also for me, my school has a district specific scholarship platform. And so this might not be the same for everyone, but I didn't even know it existed till like my senior year of high school. But like do your research on stuff like that because it really like sometimes stuff like that exists and it's just not advertised and there's, so many opportunities there that you could be missing out on. And then yes, like what Michael was saying, just a simple Google search can really help and take note of whatever scholarship. And I think another thing that helps is to add, because I know sometimes it can be like overwhelming when you search scholarships and it's like just a million different scholarships. But you could add like a keyword to it, like community service scholarships or for me, I'm from Colorado, so I would be like Colorado scholarships, stuff like that to maybe get it more specific. And on a lot of these websites, you can also like filter that out. So take advantage of that stuff.
Yeah, I think those are great resources. Some things that I've heard in kind of the scholarship space that I'm in, Scholarships Owl is a popular one, scholarships.com. A lot of schools, if you're interested in like a particular school, I would check out their resources too. There's usually an alumni network that offers scholarships, depending on, your region and where you're looking. Also, your school guidance counselor will have a lot of resources for you. Sometimes the the district website, like you said, those local scholarships. So it's really just using all of the things that you already have at your disposal. Sometimes, Chick-fil-A has a scholarship for high school employees if you work at Chick-fil-A. Like there's all kinds of resources out there. So I think my best advice would just to be get really creative. Think about all of the things that you are already doing and look into those. Your club advisors might have resources for you, local high schools, local organizations. But you can start with those bigger organizations like Scholarships Owl, scholarships.com. But like it was mentioned, those are typically more competitive because they're more accessible. So I think the more regional, local scholarships you can find, sometimes you have better luck with those kinds of things. As we wrap up here, I'm just going to rapid fire through a couple of these in the chat. A lot of people are asking about where to get this recording afterwards. This will be posted on our website within the next couple of days. So it'll be under the resources tab, and then it'll say webinars. And then if you scroll down to the bottom, it'll say past webinars, and it'll take you to our YouTube channel. So it'll be this recording and then some other ones that we've done. We do one of these every quarter. So every couple of months we have panels like this. So there'll be a lot of resources and it covers a lot of different topics. I encourage you all to look at the older ones too, if you're curious. My daughter was given money. Okay, so NSHSS can send money directly to your school. That's usually the preferred way because it's not taxed when it goes to your school. Schools usually prefer it that way too, but if you're in a situation where if you're receiving scholarship funds and it deducts from your financial aid, we can work with you on it. So if it's like a specific situation, I know a lot of the Ivy Leagues do that with the financial aid packages. So we can always work with you and we can accommodate you. So if there's ever a situation where you're concerned about your financial aid being affected, you can always send us an email and we can talk about your specific situation and we'll figure out a way to make it work. So I wouldn't let that deter you from applying to scholarships because most scholarship providers are amenable to making, exceptions and like working with you to try to get you the money that you need. That's always the goal. We never want to deduct anyone's financial aid, so wouldn't stress about that too much. And where can you find all of these scholarships? The NSHSS website has a scholarships tab that'll have all of our open scholarships that are open right now. The deadline for those that are open currently are between March and April, and then we have another big batch that opens up in May. So just keep checking the website. Those are coming up in the next 4 to 6 weeks, a lot of those deadlines. But then there's going to be more after that that are going to be open for the next few months over the course of the summer. So if you're pushing it a little too much and you don't feel comfortable applying to the ones that are there now, just keep checking. There will be more opportunities in the future. Okay, I think that wraps up today's session. If you have any additional questions that we didn't cover today, you can always send us an email at scholarships@nshss.org. And like I said, this recording will be on our website as well. All of scholarship information is going to be on our website. If you need to talk to somebody specific, you can give us a call, send us an email. We can answer all your questions there. Thank you so much to our lovely panelists that took the time to speak with us today. I hope you all enjoyed and got some really good insight from these brilliant, brilliant people. Thank you all so much and have a great evening.